Today, we get to talk about, yes, my favorite species in Star Trek, Cardassians. I'm Michael Dismuke. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures RPG, lead writer and game designer for Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log solo RPG, along with being a blogger on Continuing Missions, which is the #1 fan site for both of those aforementioned products. My erstwhile ally here is with us again, Jim Johnson.
Hey everybody, Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG, the Captain's Log solo RPG, Buffer Time card game, other stuff. And just excited to be here. Gosh, 5 years. We're in 2025 now. It's just going strong here. And we've always got more Star Trek to talk about. I think somewhere right around the time this thing airs, Section 31 will be upon us, the movie with the fabulous Michelle Yeoh.
This day, I think it releases this day. Exactly. It should be on the day this is really. Woohoo!
Oh, go watch that and then come back and listen to us, or listen to us and then go watch that. I don't know, whatever order you want to do it in. It's a Star Trek day, lots of Star Trek videos to watch, and I'm sure there's other Star Trek videos out there to watch as well. But here we are, going to talk all about Cardassians in a very compressed period of time, depending on how long this takes us to charge through. But there's lots to talk about, and we've got two guests here who are no strangers to the show, so I'll just have them introduce themselves, any cool projects they're working on, and then we'll jump into it. So Meric, take it away, please.
Hello, my name is Meric Moir. I am a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures and have done work on Achtung Cthulhu and The Expanse and the Cosmere RPG. And I am currently side-eyeing Michael, whose favorite species is Cardassians.
Yes.
We're going to unpack that one today.
Awesome. Thank you, Meric. And then Al, introduce yourself and all the fabulous projects you have in the works right now.
Hi, everyone. Al Spader. I'm a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures. I was the lead writer on the Federation Klingon War tactical campaign. I also do some game designing of my own, most notably Sentience 2D20, which I believe the Kickstarter has probably kicked off since once this thing premieres. So we're excited for that. And also the author of Once Upon the Storybook role-playing game.
All right. Cardassians. I think I can say for us all that if you did fall in love with Cardassians, it had to be with Deep Space Nine, and it had to be with Gul Dukat, and it had to be, most of all, with Garrick. Okay, so let's talk about this species and what sets them apart from all the other species that we've seen in Star Trek. So we'll do a go round, and I want you to bring to your forefront what makes a Cardassian. Let's go Al, Meric, and then Jim.
So for me, the whole thing about the Cardassians is I always feel like they're saying something, they are thinking something else, and then they're subtly saying something else. So there's like lots of layers on how they communicate and interact with other people. And so even though words that come out of their mouth are saying one thing, they might have an alternate meaning to the person saying them, or an alternate saying to the person they're speaking to. I think that's kind of where I really like the Cardassians. Yeah.
Well said.
Yep.
Well said, Meric. I said Garrick.
I'll be Garrick. Yeah, Al, absolutely. That's a really great way to put it. I think for me, Cardassians are a fascist culture. They are very much about, we are right. Our way of life is right. And aren't the rest of you just a little bit sweet? They're very they're paternalistic. They look down on people a lot. They're arrogant. But the individuals have these very redeeming qualities that they would say are never at all like anybody in the Federation, because they are true Cardassian virtues. And I think even when you get a character like Garrick or Zial, who's, half, but you get a character who is clearly heroic or aligned with the Federation values in some way. They still have this consistency of Cardassian culture, which feels like richly developed in a way that a lot of other ones are not. Like, even though we've seen Vulcans on the screen for decades, they still feel like a monoculture.
Yep.
Cardassians don't, even though, playing to Al's point, the saying one thing and the layering, like fascism, other things, they've got a lot going on. They're very interesting.
Right. Jim, my personal aficionado on all things Cardassian and DS9.
I don't know about that. DS9 certainly, maybe not Cardassians specific, but I think you got to take your hat off to the writers of DS9 for adding so much depth and detail to the Cardassians, so that they're not a monolith, right? There are so many interesting Cardassian characters all throughout the show that show you at different levels of society, different life paths, different worldviews. You've got the Bajorans who adopted a Cardassian kid, and he was all, I mean, by the end of the episode, he was all messed up in the head because he was like, I don't know who I am or what I want to do with, I mean, and that was a dark episode, right? That was I think it was the first season episode, maybe second season, I don't remember now, but it was like, wow, there was no happy ending. There was like, that wasn't we're going to warp off, we're going to have a laugh track at the end and warp off to the next adventure next week. That was some hard stuff there. But then you've got in Duet, right? That great episode of Duet, you've got the clerk posing as his boss, guilt-ridden for everything that they had done. I was like, and then you got
one of the best acted episodes ever.
Oh, it's so good. It was so good. And you got Ducat, and you got Garrick, and you've got there's just so many great Cardassian characters. I mean, especially why did I just blank on his name? Ducat's right-hand man, who eventually Damar leads the revolution at the end. I mean, Damar's a great character. Had such a great arc. And then you got all the different characters in between too, like the legate who defended O'Brien and was just there for like keeping the Cardassian credibility alive, right? He didn't care about
level.
Shakespearean. I just love the depth of the culture that they were able to create in DS9, but I also love the diversity of the characters that they've created too. Even like I can see it behind you, Michael. Oh, actually, no, that's Kira dressed up as a Cardassian. There was an episode where there was a group of Cardassian scientists helping out setting up the communication station on the other side of the wormhole.
Quark's old love, right?
Yeah. That too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The one who thought that Miles was hitting on her.
Yeah. Yeah, because they were argumentative and stuff, and she's like, "Ooh, this is great." Yeah, he's like, "What are you doing? I hate you." It's like, "Oh yeah, say more, Daddy."
my favorite line ever said, I pulled it up to, is Bashir talking with Garrick, and he says, "Of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't? My dear doctor, they're all true, even the lies." Especially the lies. the complexity of these characters, and Al knows because we have, I would say, one of our best characters in our 5-year season is a Cardassian. Why they're my favorite, Meric, I'll go ahead and defend myself right now. There's something beautiful about them from a tragedy point of view, because when you look into what's been written about them on screen, they were once a peaceful, artistic culture. And there was a time where they and Bajorans actually got along. Bajorans, they were all sharing it, but because of a lack of resources, they degenerated into authoritarian, totalitarian fascism. I think the Cardassians speak to humanity more than any other alien species in Star Trek. And their mirroring of World War II history, and even what's carrying on now in the world, in certain parts of the world, I've never seen a species be so on target, even more so than the Klingons with the Russians. People want to make that comparison all the time. I've never seen such a nuanced species compared to real politics going on. Even the heartbreaking stories that Jim just mentioned with these children orphans, not only Cardassians adopted by Bajorans, but Bajorans adopted by Cardassians, or what the women had to do under oppression. It's so socially impactful to me, the Cardassians. And being able to throw it on a species like that so that we could self-reflect on ourselves, it's just one of the most beautiful species I've seen in Star Trek. And that's my personal feeling why I love them so much. They're so beautifully, tragically complex.
Yeah, and the writers for Deep Space Nine took great care to show that these are people, right? And they're individuals, and in many ways, their culture defined them, but they oftentimes would act antithesis to what you would expect from what the perception of their culture is, right? They are real people with real emotions and real feelings, and we got to see that all throughout the series.
And I think it's also important to say that they were really strong in that series because even though they gave those moments, they did not excuse the occupation or the brutality in any way. They showed that the Bajorans suffered. And every time Dukat came in and said, like, I was a benevolent leader, they were so lucky to have me, you knew that he was wrong. And like, I think that they threaded a needle that was very hard.
Well, there you're nailing it, Meric, because I think what happens is you see the full spectrum of colonizer guilt with the Cardassians. We had to do it to preserve our people. We understand what we did was wrong, but in the end, we all benefited from it. Like they have this entire colonistic, like they sum it up so well. And then of course the Cardassians would not be Cardassians in Star Trek without the Bajorans to juxtaposition that fast. Like to me, there's such a like I want to cry almost talking about them because I love their culture and it's sad that it went there. And I want to see it. I want to see it redeemed.
We do.
How
I
so?
mean, we assume that we do, right? In Discovery, the president of the Federation is part Cardassian. And they point out that that would have never happened with the Cardassia that we know from the Next Generation era. They saw Zial and anybody with mixed blood as bad.
Yes. What was the journey to get there? So now we go into Star Trek Adventures RPG.
Oh, Jim, I have one more. I have one more point before we move. One thing that I really, really loved about how they depicted Cardassians and Bajorans in DS9 was through literature and through fiction. There's this great, this really, really good exchange between Bashir and Garak about detective stories. And Bashir is like, I don't like reading Cardassian detective stories because the person who was, they're all always guilty and they all always confess. And Garrick's like, because the point of the story is society wins. And just having this like complete different alien understanding of how a story is told really sets them apart.
I love that.
And the Bajorans have that as well from their perspective in their religion. But yeah, I'm going to plug too, because you said that, I'm plugging Andrew Robinson's A Stitch in Time. If you haven't heard it, better yet, get the Audible because he reads it as Garak. Beautiful book written by the person who played a character who, if you listen to Delta Flyers, he's been on Delta Flyers during the DS9 episodes, talking about, like, I thought I was going to be a one and done character. Then they invited me back. Then they invited me back. Then they invited me back. And he had so much influence on how that character was perceived, even on the body language in the very first episode. He chose to interact with Bashir that created an entire new genre of character in Star Trek. And so, like, if you have a chance to read A Stitch in Time, or better yet, listen to it, that gives you an insight into how beautiful Cardassians are also.
I do feel like I have to call out just real quickly. I know we always go to Gul Dukat as like this bad guy, representation, the guy who you love to hate. I think that we'd be remiss if we don't mention Seska. Because
Ooh,
like I
yeah.
know we think about Deep
Thank
Space
you.
Nine as being the Cardassian show, right? But I think that Seska was a very layered character in Voyager those first two seasons, and meant sometimes she was just downright creepy. You know what I mean? I thought
Yeah.
she was such a great villain because she was familiar to us. From stories that we had seen in other
Mhm.
Trek, and she just executed it so well.
Thank
Yeah.
you for that. And you actually saw her
Absolutely.
motivation, her culture come through with how she aligned with the Kazons.
Mhm.
Like you really saw that's how powerful culture can be in affecting you in the future. So yeah, thank you for calling. I love Voyager. So thank you for the Seska call out.
I almost wonder, like, that's a whole nother riff, but like, how did Seska's presence change the perception of women among Kazon?
Oh, you see that. You
Yeah,
you you
right.
see that up to the very last episode when she's in it.
So,
Mhm.
but I guess like, does that keep spreading? Like, do you know what
Oh,
I mean? Like,
that would be a great Delta
how
Quadrant
does the
story.
Kazon get changed just by her mere presence? You know what I
You're
mean?
right, because we've never seen on screen a female Kazon.
Right.
Ooh. All right. Star Trek, Jim, you have something to say on this before we go?
That's something to say. I don't know if I had anything to say. I was just thinking as y'all were chatting. It's a shame that we don't really get to see that arc from the end of Next Gen DS9 Voyager out to Discovery, 32nd century, because it takes the Cardassians 900 years to get to the point where one of their descendants is the president of the Federation. Somewhere along the way, they joined the Federation, right? What got them there? Because I think we see it in Garrick in the very last episode of DS9, where he's talking about 800 million Cardassians got wiped out, all their culture's gone, their artistic cities were destroyed. He doesn't know how they're going to rebuild, but I mean, clearly somehow they did. But like that whole gigantic arc, I mean, I don't know, that could be a multi-generational campaign, but like to play a Cardassian post Dominion War, like
We've picked that up in our game. So our
Good.
game is 2380 something now, and we actually picked up that the remnants of the Dominion War have attracted certain Cardassians into Starfleet service. Even ones who were before part of the Cardassian military switched over, and they were able to take like for instance, our chief engineer was able to take their experience serving with the Cardassian military, go to Starfleet Academy, and come in as a lieutenant commander. So I honestly think in the 2400s, I think you'd see a lot of Cardassians coming into Starfleet. My question is, which would be fascinating as a Star Trek Adventures game, is to play off when did the Bajorans and the Cardassians make peace? Like really heal their old wounds. Like how beautiful of a story would that be?
I mean, I would have to think it'd be generations, right? A couple generations at least to get through the I was there present horror kind of thing, and then my grandparents were in it, and then my great grandparents were in it. The further removed you get, maybe it gets a little easier. I don't know.
I would challenge. This is one of those times where I have American Al moment where I'm going to challenge that, Jim. That's true what we see with humanity,
Sure.
but could we write a science fiction story where it took only one generation?
Maybe. If you we did an episode some time ago about rehabilitating Kai Wynn and Dukat, right? So we could fold that in, right? Like, I mean, if we can redeem Dukat, then maybe maybe that there's hope for everybody.
I think that one of the reasons that it's difficult is because of the radical change to Bajoran culture, that they were peaceful and religious and very strict as well with their castes, with their Dajaras, and then radically changed to militant, and then suddenly Deep Space Nine storylines of like religious hit war, all of these things. I think that what speaks to make it easier is, like you were saying, the fallout of the Dominion War and how destroyed Cardassian culture was as well. And I think that that plays and makes it more possible.
I'm going to get deeper for y'all for a second, because I had to do a lot of study on DEI and the history of racism in the United States. And one of the biggest fears that people who were racist is that if things are equalized, that their victims would be equally harsh to them. And that's one of the biggest fears that keeps people from making progress on racism, is that people are afraid that they're going to be abused like when they were the abusers. And how beautiful a story would it be that the Cardassians, after they're devastated, the Bajorans prove that wrong, and as a culture go in and help. Because the Cardassians act like they do because they think people will treat them like Cardassians, just like racists think people will treat them like racists. I would go there with that story and kind of uplift and be the progeny of those characters coming into Starfleet.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard story to tell, because how do you not have the Bajorans? Like, the Bajorans have such grievances that are justified. So how do you tell that story without it being, apologetic for the occupation? And then, like, the Cardassians as well, are they too arrogant to accept help?
Some, maybe.
Yeah.
Not all. That would be
Not
stereotyping.
all. No. Yeah.
And maybe that's the group. Maybe in your Star Trek Adventures game, if you play it late 24th century going into 25th century, maybe you're starting the movement of the past is the past, we're something new. And that starts the integration. That would be, to me, a beautiful story to tell.
You know where I'd love to see it? I'd love to see it in the demilitarized zone. I think that that's a better place to start than with the capital planets.
Would the Maquis start that? A revived Maquis?
Ooh, that's interesting.
A new Maquis? Jim.
I mean, I don't know that there would be a new Maquis, because the circumstances are so different. But any Maquis survivors going back to the Badlands and seeing the devastation that not only the Cardassians wrought, but then the Dominion right after them, right?
Wow.
If you had 3-player characters, a Bajoran, a Cardassian, and a former Maquis, that would be an interesting campaign to run. That's for sure.
That'd be interesting. Like Admiral Chakotay, if Chakotay was promoted to some sort of ambassadorship to bring them all together. Even O'Brien could be reintroduced as as some sort of, he was very much involved with the Cardassian War, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cardassians are outlined in the Alpha Quadrant book.
Mm-hmm.
They have stats with species abilities.
Sure, they're in the second edition core book too.
Yeah. This I like, by the way, I'm just going to call it out because I believe in elephants in the room. Like, I noticed that this episode of Continuing Conversations has become way more philosophical, softer than most of ours. And I like that. And I think this is touching on the beauty I see in Cardassians and why I love them so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're very, very nuanced, right? I mean, they're not a one-note villain like I don't know. We took care of the Nausicaans last time. I don't know. Even the Ferengi have their moments. I mean, they're very capitalistic, but they've got some diversity of stuff going on too.
Yeah. All right.
The Gorn up until Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, right. I love the Gorn. We'll have a whole episode on Gorn later, but okay, good. So I think we'll do one more go round on Cardassians. I mean, I think this is food for thought for people to play it. And I really encourage people not only to watch Deep Space Nine, but to read every novel you can about Cardassians, because I'm so proud of what a lot of the authors have done with them, especially anything with Garrick involved, any Deep Space Nine novels that involve Cardassians. Again, they're my favorite species in Star Trek, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people, if you really dive into them, you'll see that they have the harshness of a Klingon, but they have the heart of a Bajoran. They're just really, just super complex characters. All right, let's go Al, Meric, Jim for final thoughts on Cardassians.
So I've been trying to figure out how to put this into words, but like if we go with the whole World War II like an analogy, right? Like think about what happened in our world after World War II or towards the end of World War II, right? We saw scientists going from one side to the other, right?
Mm-hmm.
We saw defectors. We saw, in some cases, military experts going from one side to the other. And I think realistically, that probably was happening towards, or during the Dominion War as well, right? It's quite possible that there were some scientists that were Cardassians that came over and, were helping the Federation and things like that. So if you're gonna continue to tell those parallel stories to what's happened in real life, and I think it'll be quite realistic, and especially after World War II, the scientists going from one side to the other was very impactful into the future. So I think that if you're telling your story towards the end of the Dominion War, you can absolutely bring some maybe like a civilian expert in on your ship who is a Cardassian scientist, right? Something like that would make plenty of sense, even if they aren't officially in Starfleet. So just some ideas to ponder if you're looking to toy with the Cardassians a bit.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. We're seeing governments collapse overnight right now around the world. And sadly, there's brilliant minds that are caught up in it. And like you said, governments are trying to get them out and benefit from their knowledge. So it's so relevant to me more than any other Star Trek series. What we see happening with Cardassia and Bajor spits out what's been happening post World War II in the world. To me. So it's worth studying the writers of those shows are just epic writers if you think about what they did. All right, Meric?
I think this episode has had, like you said, a lot of philosophy, a lot of like deep thought and like some interesting things. I'm going to make it a little bit cheaper by quoting Captain America First Avenger, because it hits on that exact thing in a very nice encapsulated line, which is people often forget that the first country the Nazis invaded was their own.
Yep. Whoa.
And like, that's a very, very tight way to say, don't paint everybody with the same brush. And Cardassians are a culture. They are a whole bunch of people, and there are so many stories to tell. And I think that Star Trek has done an incredible job from like our first on-screen Cardassian, which was, I think, There Are Four Lights.
Before that.
What was before that? That's the first one I remember.
No, they came on even before that. Ro Laren with an episode.
Oh, no, even before that, I think we saw The Wounded with O'Brien and Captain Maxwell.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I think that led to Ro.
That's right.
But yeah. I think those three Cardassians we saw in The Wounded, I mean, they were even in that episode. They were nuanced, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it built and it built and it built until we get DS9, which was just like floodgates opening.
Yeah.
And when you have that 7-year show, you get to do this interesting portrayal, which, I mean, Bajorans are definitely one of my favorite species in Star Trek just because of the depth that they get. But, Michael, argument well heard. Cardassians, lots of depth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jim.
Yeah, I would just add lots of depth, lots of nuance, lots of stories you could tell, especially if it's post Dominion War, because if your character's old enough, they were probably involved or connected to the occupation somehow, and they were connected to the Dominion War, and all kinds of things can come up in that. And where do they fall in the spectrum? How do they feel about their culture being, you know, obliterated almost overnight by the Dominion? And what I think is always, and I remember reading some of this in World War II history about the, everything that happened, but like here's the Cardassians, early stages of the Dominion War. They're on top of the world. They're the big kid on the block. They're badass, and they're not thinking about too much about the shadow behind them. But as the war grinds on, all of a sudden you got the Founders and the Jem'Hadar and the Vorta in your face and in your business all the time, pushing their agenda, and all of a sudden you're not the big kid on the block anymore. Now you've become the lapdogs of an even more powerful organization. How does that make you feel? I'm confident there's no shortage of stories of like the hunter becoming the hunted, and the leader becoming the servant, right? That kind of stuff. And it just, oh god, there's just so many stories that you can dig into that. In an RPG though, I don't know that I'd want to get that dark and go down that road. But you know what? If my players were like, that's the kind of campaign we want to run, let's do it. I might give it a go.
I think let's talk about this for a second, because I think there's a especially the way Star Trek Adventures has been evolved over the years. The Federation Klingon campaign, if you were to change that to the Dominion War, I think, which people have done on continuing missions, I like that kind of campaign, Jim, if my players are in for the long haul. And trust me, that at the end, will have a happy ending. But to go through that pain in real life historically is kind of like really cool to me as a writer to do that. And so I agree. If I only have people playing for like 10 games, I'm not going to do that to them. But if I know that, hey, we're here for 10 years, let's go on the ride, and I'll make it worth your while.
What an epic tome that would be, man. That'd be so cool.
I've done it before. Remember 28 years I had with one of my longest players, and we're just wrapping up our 5th year with our game, and we're making decisions on how we want it to end, including having the characters choose what they're willing to lose to give them great character arcs. And the Cardassians are, more than any other character I've ever seen in Star Trek, Cardassians are straight up Shakespeare. They're ultimate comedy tragedy to me. And I would, if you asked me to move there right now, I don't care what era of Cardassia, I would move there just to experience the culture. All right. That's some good stuff. All right, everyone. This is the weird episode because it's almost bordered on literature and RPG, but I risk to say that less than 1% of Star Trek Adventure players are playing Cardassians, and I'm hoping that this bumps to 10% after they watch this episode, and then people make a good study of Cardassia. All right, let's go ahead and do gratitude. My gratitude is actually going to have to go to Andrew Robinson, because I do believe that because of his acting, more so than anybody else, his acting made me understand the complexity of a species, and an actor that can actually draw me in and make me want to see more of them and intrigued by them. And that if I ever meet them in real life, I feel like I want to hug them. That's like one of my biggest things. Like Danny Glover, I'm going to give you this real thing. So Danny Glover, I was at a Prince concert almost 20 years ago at the Warfield in San Francisco. And when I saw Danny Glover, he was at the concert. It was a midnight show. My sister was a member of Prince's Purple Club. The minute I saw Danny Glover, I wanted to punch him. And the reason why was because of his great acting in The Color Purple. I don't know if you've seen The Color Purple. You should see The Color Purple with Oprah Winfrey and Whoopi Goldberg and Danny Glover. But he was playing an abusive man, and you understood the abusiveness came from slavery and all that stuff. But because he did such a good job, I hated him. And because of that, he's one of my favorite actors. I love Danny Glover. I love him, but I wanted to punch him because of that. So Garrick is the same thing. I feel that Garrick has opened up all these emotions in me. And so Andrew Peregrine, again, is just Andrew Robinson is just going to be one of my favorite actors of all time. So my thank you is to great actors like that. I've been to Mandy Patinkin one-man shows. That's the person who played Inigo Montoya in Princess Bride. And I've seen these actors on Broadway who one person can rivet 2,000 people. That's an art form. It's an art that not everyone has. And when you're that kind of actor, that just opens up so much. So thank you to great actors out there who inspire. Let's go Al, Meric, and Jim to close it out.
My thanks goes to the great folks at Lazarus Rising Games. They are relaunching the Overpower card game, and they had me help write their rule book, their beginner rule book. So I believe as this airs, they are going to print with the cards very shortly. So I'm excited that they were able to build the company and get an old game off the ground, and can't wait to see where it goes.
Cool. I'm going to say my gratitude today to fans who watch shows like this, because it's really fun to come up and chat with like-minded people and delve into these things that we really love and really enjoy. And we get to do it because, you're watching and you're engaging and you're having fun. I really enjoy coming on this show. And I also want to shout out Thursdage from Green Ronin. The host there, Troy, is also a fantastic host. And he's constantly lifting up people in the community and inviting them on to talk about things that they're passionate about. So shows like this are super cool, and fans like you watching are even better. Oh, Jim, you're muted.
Yeah, I saw it. I'm sorry. Getting ready to talk, but echo everything everybody was saying. Thanks and kudos to all the writers, production teams, and actors of Cardassians over the years. You've made an amazing culture. It's really great to see all the nuances and details, and there's just so much to dig into. And it's just a great foundation for somebody in an RPG to play a Cardassian and build on it and do something different. Also, big thanks to all the fans. Of course, we wouldn't be doing this game or this show without you to watch and react to. So please, we love to hear your comments and thoughts. So please keep posting those comments on down below in the comment section, but also on the Discord, Facebook groups, et cetera, et cetera. Always love to hear from you. Most of us are regularly engaged on social media anyway, so it's not hard to talk to us. So let your voices be heard too, because the conversation, Michael, never ends.
That's right. That's right. And so all of you know, we're recording this on December 16th, but it's going to air on January 24th. But this is our last recording of December of 2024 because, of our recording schedule. We're not going to be recording. So Jim and Al and Meric, but back to Jim. Thank you so much for an amazing 2024. Gratitude to you. And I will see you in 2025 when we record our next show.
Oh, exciting. Yeah. Happy New Year, y'all.
Happy New Year.
IDIC.
Live long and prosper. Be safe, be well. We'll catch you on the flip side, 2025.